Hello everyone, just a quick preamble. Bit of a different format today. I recorded this footage while I was on holiday in Great Yarmouth and I'm now putting a voiceover to it, so apologies if the quality is a little bit iffy. But anyway, with that said, let's get on with it. This is the wonderful Docwras rock factory in Great Yarmouth. This beautiful little place opened in 1922. It's been there for 100 years as of this year. It's got elements of more or less its entire existence in there. There are a lot of different styles throughout different time periods. That lovely, obviously that beautiful pinboarding, that was very popular at the start of the 20th century, right through to the sort of 60s. The thing that strikes you most about this little place, I keep saying little place, it's not, it's quite a good size, but it's how colourful everything is. My camera does not do it justice. Everything in this cut, if you could amplify the colour on this video, you'd have to push the slider quite a way to get there as far as the actual colours. And it's in fantastic condition for its age as well. There's just the wear that you'd see in a shop that's been really well looked after for a very, very long time. So this is the main part of the factory where they make the rock. We'll get to the more detailed side of things there in a little minute. And then up above there, look at that hand-painted beautiful sign. You can see the brush marks in it where it's obviously had several coats of paint over the years. And it's such a welcoming place. Everyone's so friendly. I asked permission obviously to film in there. That's where the camera work might seem a little bit rushed. It's not that I'm rushing through because we had anywhere to be, as you'll see from how long we stood and watched the stuff be made. I just didn't want to get in anybody's way. Obviously everybody's there on holiday. I didn't want to be pushing the camera past people to try and get nice shots of stuff. Please, if you get a chance, go and experience this place firsthand. Buy a stick of rock. Keep these places open because they're fantastic. It's been trading for 100 years. And very little as far as the process has really changed. And we're working outside now. There's the beautiful neon sign. And it is glorious when it is lit up. Okay, we're into the factory now. So this gentleman here, his name's Terry. And watching this guy work was an absolute pleasure. He just... it's boiling sugar. I couldn't imagine being able to handle boiling sugar for even a couple of seconds, even when it's just hot. The guy's timing, you can tell he's just been doing it for years and years and years. Oh, so there's the traditional pull-in hook. And to the right of that, down low, that cream-coloured machine there, that's a pull-in machine. You'll see that in action shortly. That's used for the aerating process for the rock. And this machine right in front of us is known as a batch roller, from what I can tell. Yeah. So we're just, like I say, we're just establishing where things are at the moment. But look at that old tile and the tile on the floor. It's in great condition. So over at the back there, you'll see Terry's got I believe that's a thermometer. I think the correct temperature is somewhere in the region of 147 degrees Celsius. And while they're getting ready, I just thought I'd show you the chocolate machine. So that's the moulds for the chocolate. So they rotate and tip, and that allows the chocolate to coat the entire mould. Oh, there's some shots of I love a bit of lino. That's proper mid-century lino, and that stuff is incredibly hard wearing. Excuse the reflective tape there, that's left over from the pandemic, obviously. Here we go. So they're about to pour the batch. And this in and of itself, when you think of how high stakes that is, that's some pretty severe burns if you get that wrong. It's foaming, it's so hot. Right, yeah. So they're pouring out the batch currently. And at this stage, they're going to start separating out areas of the rock. But again, it's all in the timing. So you'll find there are moments where they're not doing anything to it, and they're doing other stuff, getting things ready. So Terry now is just adding the colouring And you'll see why that's relevant in a moment. They've got these tiny little shot glasses, essentially, with the dye in it. And that's all hand-mixed. And then if you look to the left of the screen shortly, you'll see the other chap, whose name I'm afraid I didn't catch. I apologise for that. Again, we didn't want to distract them too much. We just wanted to see them go through this amazing ancient process. Right, there's a reason the camera tipped up there. It's to show you that the place goes back a lot further than it might seem initially. Right, so they've added their... Well, yep, they're still adding the dyes there. And while they're doing that, they've got it down to such a fine art now, look, that there's a new batch coming on. It's like clockwork. It's just the experience of people who've been doing this job day in, day out for a very long time, and they're damn good at it. And you'll see them go back and forth, and I think my wife said what they're sprinkling on the surfaces is icing sugar, which essentially I would imagine does the same thing as flour, but doesn't cause any flour to mix in with it. Right, so those monster great shears there, they're cutting out the coloured batch there. Again, that's just amazing to me. Right, so what you'll see them do in a moment, you can see that spreading out where it's still so hot. It's still molten sugar. They'll be doing a process that, from what I've been able to find from researching how rock is made, is a process known as turning in. And that's to stop the sugar from cooling down unevenly. So they let it settle for a brief period and then they tip it. And again, it means the sugar is constantly moving through itself, which evens out the process of it cooling down, so it doesn't cool down too quickly. Apparently you can get a thing called chills in the rock, and if that happens, you basically get all these big lumps that ruin the batch, essentially. I would imagine it would just turn into a solid hard lump. Rock is obviously quite hard anyway, but it's a consistent texture. So there we go, look, they're turning in. I think Terry there is just flattening it to make sure it's all mixed evenly, because obviously you've got to make sure the colouring is nice and even. But it's just effortless the way they work. So impressive. I hope the mic quality is alright on this commentary. I don't want to have one of those irritating voices. Okay, so continuing to turn in. Look, that's so important. And these white blocks, I believe they're plastic of some description. They might even be Teflon, or something like Teflon. They use those as a combination of essentially a ruler to flatten out everything and a jig. So it shows them when they've got things nice and square, and that becomes important when they make the letters. That's a fascinating process to watch. We'll get there in just a few moments. So still turning in. So as you can see, we're going to have a lovely pink colour, but at the moment it's a deep cherry red, and that's because everything you're seeing happen now ends up no bigger than probably, I wouldn't even know, maybe a 32nd of an inch. That's an obscure measurement, eh? The letters, I believe, are somewhere in the region of a millimetre tall when they're actually in the rock. And when you see how big they are at the start, it just makes it even more impressive. You have to know exactly what you're doing. Okay. Right, yep, so I think right, you can see it's already starting to firm up now. Right. Again, apologies for the wobbly camera work. There were other people trying to watch, so I didn't want to, again, have the camera in their face. There were people's kids there, man, you know what I mean? They're wanting to see, they're excited. It's way more important than what I'm doing on this little channel. So yeah, if you see the camera suddenly wobble or what have you, I'm getting out of people's way so that they can see. So that batch at the back is going to be all of the white centre of the rock. And again, that's the part that gets aerated, which you'll see in a moment. That's one of the most satisfying things in the world. Right, here we go. So, actually the pink stuff gets aerated first. Right, so you'll see it change colour as it's aerated. that machine has been there for decades. I wouldn't like to guess how old it is, because I would say 50s, but I don't know. It looks even older than that to me. And the size of the motors on these things as well. Look at that. It's just one of the most satisfying things I've ever seen. Okay. So here we go. It's starting to change colour now. I presume it's stretching the crystals of the sugar, like the crystalline structure, and adding air into the mix, which gives it it's almost like a pearl effect, but that's beautiful in and of itself to watch. Okay, just at the right time. Again, I would have no idea how you would know what the right time is, but our guy Terry clearly knows. It's ready to rock. No, I didn't even mean to make that pun, but that's staying in. Okay, right, there we go. I can't imagine doing my job this well anyway, let alone doing my job this well consistently every day while people watch you. So they're kneading it now. And this is where they start to flatten everything out. I believe this is going to become the lettering. No, I might be wrong there. I believe this might actually become what's called the flap, which is the thin sort of outer crust, if I remember rightly. We'll find out in a moment. I should know, I only edited this video a couple of days ago. Okay, yeah, so they're continuing to knead everything in, and you can already see how consistent the colour is now. You've got that slight pearlescence to it, but everything else is just ice and sugar, to be honest. And then I think that goes under one of those blankets. I believe that's probably to keep the heat in. Just again, so everything doesn't cool down too fast. Right, what have we got here? Ah, right. I believe this is going to become the lettering. So this stuff hasn't been aerated, which obviously means that when it's compressed down to the size that it's going to be, it's a really vivid, dark red. Yeah, here we go. So they're now squaring everything up, and this is where they start to cut off the sort of, they're almost like fillets. They're all the same size and shape, and each one is going to become a letter. And it still blows my mind because I was watching this in person and I had no idea what was happening. And then, again, you can tell they've been doing it a while because Terry, bless him, he had the decency to... How embarrassing would it be if it turned out his name wasn't Terry? The lady at the counter said Terry, so I hope that's Terry. Yeah, so he's just cutting these fillets off, and I kind of figured it was the lettering, but I couldn't make head or tails of what was happening. But Terry had the decency to be holding up the letters as they were made, which is so cool, and I caught most of them, I think. That's probably a good time to tell you about this process. So they have to actually do this in a certain order, so they don't make the letters in order. So say for argument's sake you're spelling out Yarmouth, which is what these guys are going to be spelling out. You do the blocky letters first, because the square shapes won't sag as severely as the round shapes or the triangle shapes. So hopefully I've clipped this together in the right way, but there's another batch coming on at the back. Right, so these are all the fillets you can see here. These are going to become the letters, and they're stirring up the other batch over there, just making sure that's being seen too. Yeah, so as I was saying, the lettering is just mind-boggling because they have to do the square letters first as they hold their shape easier. Can you imagine? You have to keep track not only of the letters you've made, but the order they're going together in, the shape everything is, and then you've got to make sure you spell it right. There's actually the possibility for a typo in this process, which that's hilarious to me. I doubt it's happened very often, but I would be very interested to know anybody who used to work in a rock factory, Have you ever made a typo? Leave a comment. I'm not one to beg for comments, but I would love to know if there was ever a typo. And then obviously there is the they do joke rock as well. A lot of these places, well, they'll put swear words through the middle of the rock and things like that. Oh, it's cool. It's a whole world that I didn't know really existed. But you think of the training that has to go into this and the practice for this one very specific confectionery product. And I'm not saying that that's all they make. As you can see just there, there's the chocolate machine. In fact, as I said that, these guys make all kinds of stuff. I think most of what they sell is made in-house. And yeah, so but the amount of, sorry, that was a big pop. The amount of work that goes into just this one product is insane to me. Right, I think we're about to see them aerate in the, so that, as you can see at the moment, that's like a caramel colour. That will very soon be white, believe it or not. And that again is awesome to watch. Obviously with the food dye in the other stuff you don't notice. Yeah, here we go. Right, so again that's going onto the pulling machine. Right, so what they're making currently, they're going to make a very thick piece, and that'll be the centre of the rock. The thin pieces they'll make in a short while, because I know I'm going to forget to put this on. It still blows my mind how quickly that machine sorts itself out. Look at that. Slow down, speed up, until it's right. Bam. Ready to go. Right, watch this. That's a beautiful gold colour, but it does change colour while we're talking to white. Yeah, so you've got the centre, and then the thin parts are called flaps, because obviously they're essentially flaps of rock. So Terry's now adding flavouring to the centre. If memory serves, their rock always seems to have a mint flavour, but I'm sure they do others. And it's a really nice, refreshing mint flavour. I've not got much of a sweet tooth, but when I have rock there, I feel like I've brushed my teeth, ironically. Yeah, it's really nice flavouring. There it goes. Yeah, and then when they put this all together, it's known as a boiling. Just to give you some lingo. There we go. That's that. Ready to go. I nearly did the pun again. It wasn't intentional. It's just a force of habit. Okay. Right. So this piece is going to become an outside surround to the letters. The closest way I can equate the style of the lettering is that it's like, you know, those old 7-segment displays, like on a digital display from the 80s. It's like that. They're almost 8-bit. Yeah, see, I've edited this back to front, I think. What's he making? He's making a note. Yes, I've edited this back to front. I'm terribly sorry. Or have I? Oh no, these letters become blocky. I see what they're doing. That's really clever. So when I was doing my research, because again, it's something I didn't know, and there's a very good reason I didn't know and I hadn't noticed. These guys are using those bars to stop the letters from changing shape, which is amazingly efficient. That's cool. They've figured a way around that thing that is so common in other places that it's mentioned, you know. So what they're doing now is they're wetting down the mix there to get everything to stick. This is awesome. Watch this. So keep an eye on Terry. Just folded those 2 bits in. There's another white piece. He's wetted it down and stuck it together. And at the moment, it doesn't really look like much, except it's an R. Yeah, calm as you like, then just back on the table, stretch it out. So they're stretching them all out to the same length, and they piece these together. And again, the guy on the left, you can see he's working away. He's making a T there. go. So yeah, the white bits act as a spacer, so you can almost imagine the letters as though they were pixels, really, on an old sort of 8-bit computer. So you fill in the area that isn't letter with white, so that when it all gets pressed into the actual batch, you don't notice that there are any joins, because everything's happening on such a tiny scale, and that's how you get that fantastic clear lettering. So I think now we're making what are we making? I think we're making an M now, so keep an eye out on that process. Again, I'm only telling you that because I was sat there watching it and I didn't notice what was going on. It was like magic. Literally, he chucks a couple of bits together like that, like it's, do you know what I mean? Like it's no big deal. And then he holds it up and he's made a letter. I didn't catch this at all when I was watching it in person. M. It never gets old. Please, 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 please go to Docwras and watch them do this in person, because it is so cool. It's a long process. It takes probably an hour from start to stop. If you want to watch from the very minute they pour the mixture out, but it's worth it. And this part in particular, it just never gets old. Right, so yep, they're chopping away. Last couple of letters there. I think I might have whittled this down a bit. Those shears are impressive as well. Yeah, the process of wetting things down to get them to stick together is amazing as well. What we got there? Oh, this is, I think this might be Y. Yep, okay, so same as before, look, using the white to fill in the void that would be around the lettering, and then he just brings it up to size. There's something about watching people who are really good at their job that's just so satisfying to me, whatever it is they're doing. Alright, here we go. Wet the back of that down. Stick that on there. Bam. That's the letter Y. Done. Alright, have we got the word? We're nearly finished with the word now, I think. Okay, yeah, cool. So they're gathering it all up now. Now will be the time to run spell check. Just make sure you've got your letters in the right order. And as you can see, they're using extra pieces of the white rock to act as a spacer, and those are all done so precisely. The lettering, honestly, it's amazingly accurate. When you see it completed, it's pretty mind-bending, really, because if you make a mistake on this big scale, once that's squashed down, it could mean the letters all blur together. There's a Flintstones steak-looking part there now. So just flattening everything out, making sure it's even. And this whole while that's been going on, the batch roller has been running. I don't know if you noticed that, but so this is they're rolling out the flap now. And again, this is sugar, ladies and gentlemen. Sugar, water, and glucose syrup, if memory serves. And they make something this impressive with it. It's just so cool. I just think it's brilliant. Yeah. Making it into a nice even sheet there so that it can be rolled, which they're going to do in a moment. And this is where we get what's known as the boiling, apparently, from what I've been able to find. It's just a turn of phrase, no difference to working in a pub where you tap a barrel. There we go. Right, so there's the centre getting cut. Look at those shears working. It amazes me they don't wear out faster, but those shears look really old. I don't know how old they are, but chances are they're still adjustable. You Probably take them apart, sharpen the blades, and then just tighten the nut down a little bit more, and that's it. As good as new again. Right, so there's another flap going, I believe. Right. So that's going into the batch roller again to even everything out. There seems to be some sort of arrangement there with that batch roller where if it meets a certain amount of resistance, it starts turning back in the other direction. I'm not sure what that's about, but it's amazing to watch that work because it's clearly a very old machine and it just works so beautifully. There we go. Right. There goes the lettering. So the lettering goes onto a flap to give it some space, obviously, because otherwise you'd have the tops of the letters bleeding into the edge, which is the same colour as the letters. So that's why they've got that sort of fillet between them. And then there's the centre. It's just amazing to watch. That must be really fun, by the way. I dread to think how heavy that is. Okay, now they're going to roll the outer flap round. So what you've got there, you are not going to believe how much rock that makes. And something else I found really impressive that I haven't talked about yet is how little waste there is in this process. There's very little scrap. Most manufacturing processes end up with a degree of wastage. There's barely any. Yeah, so rolling back and forth. Again, they know exactly how long to do that for, and the way they just rolled it back off the counter perfectly in sync like that, and then it goes into the batch roller. And I believe, yeah, so they're pressing the end at the moment. I think that's just to make sure they get as much viable rock out of it as possible, because obviously you can't have rock that's all centre. There it goes. Right, so the batch roller's going to do its thing, and now we come to the really cool bit. So this is known as spinning out. So Terry is currently stretching the rock to a predetermined diameter, which is amazing in and of itself. I found it interesting that they cut it by basically slapping it with that. I'm going to sound like a complete imbecile here. It's like a big knife, and they just give it a slap, and it cuts it so evenly. Right, so here we go. So it's basically being extruded like you would with a piece of aluminium, but so accurately. And that lady there, whose name again I didn't catch, but she's doing the actual spinning out process in a moment. So the reason that you do this, you stretch it out to that length, which as you can see is quite far. Cut that batch off, and then she's straightening that out, and you have to roll it by hand continuously, more or less, because otherwise everything sags. And you'll see that in a moment. So I tried to clip this together so it wasn't too time consuming, but you'll see in a moment Terry turns round and puts a piece on the windowsill, and you can watch it sag. There we go. So cool that they took the time. That's those letters. But as you can see, it's already trying to sag because it's still warm. Can I just say, by the way, what a class act these guys are.
Maybe one like sticky.
Hi there, you alright?
It's still hot.
That was really nice. Is it still hot?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's still
Fresh.
hot.
As fresh as it gets, look.
It's still hot.
That gent just cut us off a load of the mid-run stuff before it had even cooled down and gave it to a very, very happy Lace. So not only did they take the time to show us the process and little things like putting that little piece of rock on the sill so that we could see the letters forming as they were going to be, they even smashed off a couple of bits and just brought them around in a bag. They didn't know if we were going to buy anything. What a class act these guys are, honestly. Oh, I should mention, it's free to watch this, by the way. This costs nothing. They're making the batch anyway. They just took the time to make it interesting for the potential customers. So yeah, that's the spinning out process. So the lady there will continue to roll that out. And then Terry kind of broke off from the group, as it were, and started a project. And again, we weren't sure. We figured this was just some sort of extra thing. But no, this is, again, completely free. But because we took the time to stand there and watch, this awesome craftsman, just that little bit extra. So as you'll see in a moment, it's a flower. Made a flower out of the leftover rock. And then I got to shake this guy's hand because he brought another one out that he also made while we were watching for my wife. What a class act. Docwras Rock Factory, Great Yarmouth. 100 years of trading. Free to watch them make the rock. Beautiful confectionery place anyway. Just an absolute gem of a store. Please, please, please visit Docwras if you're in Great Yarmouth. Places like this need to last forever. Yeah. Thank you to Docwras for letting me film. Thank you to Terry for putting on such a great show. And thank you guys for sticking with me and watching if you did. I appreciate it. See you again.